I'm Dean Newlund, and welcome to the Business of Intuition, where I coach, facilitate, train, and speak on the hard science and meaningful experience of intuitive leadership in business, so you can make better decisions, forge real connections, and creatively solve problems to amplify your impact and simplify your life. Welcome to the Business of Intuition.
You all have been through those strategic planning sessions that get to the point where we talk about the values or the guiding principles or the code of engagement commitments that we want to make to each other. And words start to fly like honesty, transparency, caring, accountability. Words that we know mean something, but there's a little part of us in our minds that say, yeah, this all sounds good, but are we really going to follow these words? Are we really going to turn these words into some sort of meaningful, sustainable behavior? And then, of course, one of those words comes up that often does, and that's called integrity. Again, a wonderful word, but do we really know what it means? Do we really understand how to translate its meaning into behavior? And of course, then, if you're a facilitator or a leader of this team, it almost becomes a futile engagement to try to have these conversations around value statements, et cetera, because we also know that it's going to be really hard to really turn it into some sort of sustainable behavior. So the next time we do it, people start rolling their eyes and go, here we go again, another session on our values. And we all know that we're not really going to follow them. So there's one thing, of course, that has to do with value statements that's good for our website and for our branding. But for a set of commitments to be able to use within an organization, that's quite a different thing. Well, my next guest on the Business of Intuition has really begun to tackle this very issue. How do we take the word, say, for example, integrity, and really understand what it means so that we all are on the same page? And more importantly, what sort of questions do we need to ask in order to translate this wonderful word into sustainable, changing behavior in our organization? His name is Jeff Klubeck, and I had a fantastic conversation with this guy out of Southern California, who also does a lot of teaching there at the local university. And we discussed in detail about how to translate the word integrity into real sustainable behavior. He is the author of what's called the Integrity Game, which is an evolving, comprehensive set of soft skills that are turning into the focus of his company and his public speaking career. He's a very upbeat and charismatic guy and a coach and a consultant, and he focuses on how to make businesses and entrepreneurs thrive while not losing a sense of what makes a company outstanding, which, of course, is leadership. Jeffrey is a successful author that has worked with small and large businesses. My next guest on the Business of Intuition, Jeff Klubeck. So, Jeff, great having you on the show. And I know you are hailing from one of my favorite places, San Diego, California.
Well, San Diego loves you too. It's mutual.
Thank you. It's a mutual love affair. We've had it for many, many years. I know you were in a similar space by human development, and you've got an interesting 10-point process having to do with something you call the integrity game.
Yeah.
And integrity is one of those words, man, we've been hearing a lot. People, let's do a vision statement. Let's do a mission statement. Let's do values for our team. And lo and behold, gosh darn it, don't we see integrity showing up a lot? It's obviously something that we feel akin to, but it may be overused in some cases. It may be saturated. What is your definition of integrity? Why have you used it? Give us a little bit of background around your process, and we can maybe find some connections to, other parts of this conversation.
Yeah, it's such a rich conversation. Thank you for having me, by the way. And so, first of all, let me say that integrity can be overused. If it's overused, let me agree in this way. It's overused from a place of judgment. So often, the use of the word integrity comes when someone is accusing somebody else of not having it. So that's one
of integrity.
Yeah. So it's a judgment based. It's a judgment based. So I'm going to elaborate on that piece. I'm going to break that down a little bit in a second. That's number one. There's the vibration. When you talk about intuition, if you're, vibrating in fear, what do you think you're going to intuit? Probably something scary. But anyway, so my point is, if my understanding at core in my subconscious is a judgment based, they're out of integrity. They have no integrity. Where's the integrity? I mean, think about, red and blue, two wings of the same bird in our country are accusing, right? Or I think about Pocahontas, right? At the end of the movie Pocahontas, when they're like savages, and everybody's pointing at each other, calling each other savages, or everybody's willing to accuse somebody else of being out of integrity. So what we know from a human development perspective or communication perspective or psychology perspective is that we're usually guilty of what we're willing to accuse somebody else of.
So let's hold off. That's a great point, and I do 100% agree with you. So let's put a little underline on that.
Yeah.
So say that again, because I think it's an important concept.
It's safe to say that we are usually guilty of what we're willing to accuse another of.
And okay, so great concept. And I agree with you on this. But for somebody who has just heard this for the first time, they're going to go, hell no. So unpack it for that person so that we can understand. Like, why would I'm being devil's advocate here for you, but why would I see something in somebody else that I don't agree with, and somehow I'm at fault as well? That doesn't jive with me, Jeff.
Yeah. Well, sometimes we flinch when it's a fly instead of a bee also. In other words, fight or flight response. Yeah, fight or flight response. We're spring loaded like a mouse trap, to defend ourselves when we sense physical danger. So the same thing is true of psycho-emo danger as well. Anything different than my sense of self, I'm going to attack or ignore. That's going to be my instinctual reaction, but we can reason and we can communicate. So we lengthen the fuse a little bit the way I do this in the keynote is I just invite everybody in. How many of you believe you have integrity? And, by show of hand or head nod or whatever, and 100% of the room raises their hand. And then I just joke. I use humor as the metaphor. I mean, the Trojan horse to get the learning through. I say, all right, so keep your hand up and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear not to shoot the messenger in 45 minutes. So I get the laugh. Yeah, exactly. But now I've got, through the laugh, I've got a little bit of permission to do what you just asked. It's like, break this down. How do I get people to understand that they are the ones out of integrity? And and it's a trick question, right? But because I say, all right, well, what is integrity? Let's make sure we're talking about the same thing. And so here are the two answers, and I bet you can guess them. If I asked you, Dean, and I bet you get the two answers that I always get when I do this in keynotes and workshops and so forth. What is integrity? I always get two answers. What is it?
First thing that comes to mind without thinking about it too much would be honesty, aka transparency.
But how would we know? How would we know if it's honesty is an adjective, but how is it integrity? Right? So honesty,
doing the right thing.
Right.
Morally correct.
Okay, so doing the right thing, and so that's one of the two answers I always get is doing the same thing when nobody's watching as you would when somebody is watching. Exactly. Do the right thing regardless of who's watching. So let's pin that on the board. That's one. What's the other? I knew you'd do it. No, what's the other?
So doing the right thing, even though no one is watching. Okay, so that was one.
And the other is be your word. This is the one that most people don't do what you say you're going to do. Whether it's right or wrong, do it. They don't. You're like, that's separate.
If I commit to something to you, and I say that, like, Jeff, I'm going to I'm going to get you this PowerPoint by the end of the day.
Yeah,
I would be in integrity if I actually went through in that, or if I did not, I would probably break it. I would break a commitment. I would break.
You got it.
My word.
You got it. Yes. Be your word. So these are the two answers. Do the right thing regardless of who's watching. The right thing regardless of who's watching. Then be your word. Do what you say you're going to do. So those are the two answers. And I ask anybody else? No, and I always get these two answers, right? On rare occasion, I'll get some different approach to it. But those are the, by and large. And again, they're judgment based. This is the breakdown. You didn't do what you said you were going to do. You didn't do the right thing. Okay.
Right.
But let me add to this, be your word, do, like if I told you I was going to get you a PowerPoint, what if you told yourself that you were going to get me a PowerPoint? What about keeping your word to yourself? Right. And this is where people miss, because people are breaking their word to themselves all the time, if they even make any commitments to themselves in the first place. And in the subconscious void, of I haven't made commitments. I haven't decided what I'm going to do. I haven't had the discipline. I haven't determined my purpose, my gifts. I haven't made sacrifices. I'm not, pursuing the life I want to pursue. I'm going to go ahead and sit back and tell you're not doing the right thing, or you didn't do what you said you're going to do. So
perfect. I'm diving with you. So I get it. So the commitments we make to ourselves, we will break. Like I want to go to the gym every day,
God,
I was going to go to the gym. I didn't go to the gym because I got sidetracked with something else. So I'm going to reschedule it for today. I broke a commitment to myself. Yes,
you
I
did
can see that. So then I'm out of integrity. So therefore I could see that
on that commitment. It doesn't mean you're a bad person overall. So what?
If you were to say, I make a commitment to a client, I'm going to get a PowerPoint. Let's just keep the PowerPoint thing going. I'm going to make a commitment to a client to get this PowerPoint.
Let's write this PowerPoint thing. See where it says.
Let's ride this way, right? Yeah. Let's just say we're doing that. I will take very strong amount of energy around that commitment, meaning that means something to me. It means something to me more than it probably does if I break something to myself than if I break a commitment to somebody else. So that to me, I am more apt, in all honesty, me being clear here, to hold commitments to other people more so than I would hold commitments to myself.
That's great. And I think that's important that you know that about yourself. And at the same time, you would probably agree with me that there are people that would do it the other way around, no right or wrong or good or bad or clean or dirty or civil or savage. But there's some people that would say, you know what, my commitment,
by the way.
Thank you. My commitments to myself are the most important. There are some people that have the worldview that my commitments to myself, honoring myself, how can I honor another unless? So I'm not saying there's right or wrong, chicken or the egg here, but what I am trying to point out here is back to these two definitions, do the right thing. Well, sometimes the right thing is time is money. And other times the right thing is patience is a virtue. Sometimes the right thing is to help others first. And sometimes the right thing is secure your mast first, like they tell you on an airplane. Like, congratulations with your values, Dean, that your word to others is more important than your word to yourself, but they ain't going to fly on an airplane where they tell you to secure your mast first because you can't help anybody unless you got your own stuff together.
Oh, and I totally get the flaw in that system that I just told you about, because I deal with this all the time, is like, how can you possibly help somebody else if you're not helping yourself? I mean,
that's right.
A lot of work in healthcare. How can you possibly be at your highest and best at giving care to another person when you yourself are stressed out, depressed, out of integrity with your own needs for health? How can that be? That just doesn't fly, right? And I get it.
Yeah, that comes from like Maslow, right? Like Maslow in the hierarchy of needs, his argument was you got to take care of these needs before you could elevate to these needs before you could these needs, the whole pyramid and the hierarchy of needs. And a lot's been studied about human motivation and drivers of inner psychology, etc. What I'm talking about is this understanding of integrity. What I want to do with the integrity game is expand our understanding. So back to these 2 points, right? When we do the right thing, regardless of watching, there is a coming together with word and values or word and ethics, right? We made the distinction between your personal value of word is more important with others than with self, but other people may have a different value, right? So we don't know what the right thing is in any given moment. Sometimes fools rush in, sometimes whoever hesitates is lost, right? Sometimes if you never quit, you never lose, and sometimes you then got to know when to cut your losses. So what's right and what's wrong? Who decides? How do we know? Isn't it a moving target? Like, do the right thing. They say never lie, right? Always tell the truth, always tell the truth. But I can tell you, there's this thing called Elf on a Shelf where adults are lying to children for 26 days every December, right? So it's okay to lie then, right? So in other words, this honesty thing is a moving target. I get so uncomfortable when I have to like move an elf and make up this lie about what the elf is all about if I'm supposed to be honest all the time. So it's context driven. It's not an absolute. What is integrity? You follow on that definition?
Yeah.
But here's what it is.
I want to tie off on one little piece here before we move on to this, because I just want to make sure that we're capturing the concept that we started off this little discussion early on around the idea that the thing that I feel that I blame others for, I'm actually can say that I do the same thing to myself. Like that what I accuse others of, I do myself. And so we were trying to kind of make sure, well, how is that? Why is that? And how can that possibly be? So I get it that there is this disconnect between what I see in other people might bother me because I make the same commitments to myself that I don't necessarily keep. And that's why it bothers me, is that I'm almost transforming where,
it's called projecting.
Projecting. Thank you very much, Dr. Phil. Projecting my own issues onto other people. So like now I can kind of put that into a bow and we can put that on the shelf. So I just wanted to bring that into clarity for those who are listening in. So let's get back to the integrity game and what that means and how do you use this in a way that people, organizations, teams, leaders, what's the process, man? I think I get where you're going. Bring us into sort of like the steps.
Yeah. So to tie the last question to this one, right? The definition, right? To expand the understanding of the definition of integrity, it's the coming together. It's not an adjective. It's the coming together of at least two things. The coming together of at least two. So on those examples, do the right thing. There's a behavior coming together with a value. Whatever the value is, there's a behavior that's integrated with a value. And then when we do what we say we're going to do, there's a behavior that's integrated with a commitment, like you said. So there's a coming together with a behavior and a commitment over here, and a coming together with behavior and a value. So now here's what's cool about this, Dean. In both examples, behaviors involved. Behaviors are common to not. So write this down for those of you. Behavior is the evidence of our integrity.
Nice phraseology.
Behavior is the evidence of our integrity. It's not what I meant to do, want to do. I was gonna, I would have, I could have, I should have, I didn't mean to, I wasn't trying to, I was only trying to, I was just, none of that is the evidence of our integrity, but we judge ourselves by intentions while the rest of the world is judging our behavior. So back to the example that you mentioned with the corporate boardroom, they put integrity in their mission statement, but their employees are judging the behavior, not what's in the mission statement. They're judging the behavior.
As they should. Like words mean nothing unless there's a behavior that backs it up.
Right. So the idea is what the integrity game is and how it works is I make the point using those two commonly understood definitions of integrity to point out integration. Despite that they start with the 6 same letters, nobody uses the word integration when I ask what's the integration, the coming together of one thing with another, or at least two things. Integration, integrity. It's right there in front of our face. But people don't have that because they're vibrating in judgment. They say, you didn't do what you said. You didn't do the right thing. They can't see it emotionless saying, hey, what one thing has come together with what other thing in order for us to describe that as being integrated or having integrity, right? So it's like I want to add this notion of integration, coming together of two or more things. Now, the problem then is if I said, Dean, that I was going to drink 18 beers before the podcast interview, and then I drank 18 beers before the podcast interview, I will have done what I said I was going to do, but could I claim integrity? And we all know the answer is no. If I said I was going to get in the car and hit the first pedestrian I saw, and then I did that, I will have done what I said I was going to do, but could I claim integrity? And some smart aleck, he's going to be like, yeah. So I could make the argument, and then also I already made the point that who's to know what the right thing is in any given situation? It's a moving target. So if the whole point of the integrity game is that being your word or doing the right thing is good and it's part of it, but to me it's not enough. So I added 8 more. I created a 10-point model of what we want to integrate, what we want to bring together, 10 things that we can bring together in order for us to work on our own integrity, increase our own integrity, feel like we're giving ourselves more integrity. And so metaphorically, a building, Dean, has structural integrity when what?
Near the foundation.
So that it what?
Holds up the rest of the building.
So that it can do what it was made to do. Okay. So why are human beings, teams, or organizations any different? Why waste a good pandemic? I wrote the integrity game during the pandemic where other people were binging Netflix. And so what I'm getting at is we are likely to crumble under pressure tests as well if we don't have answers to these 10 questions, whether we're looking at it from an individual perspective, a team perspective, or a cultural perspective. So I can go over the questions with you, but it's basically, it's as easy to understand the integrity game as it is hard to play. Because once you answer these questions, now you can be held to account for your answers.
All right. So now I understand the game component, add a little bit of fun to it, but it's also a process. You're kind of metaphorically making a process out of this. So let me
think about shoelaces. Like when you're lacing up shoes, the circles in a shoe and you put the string through and you go diagonal, right? Yeah. So imagine 5 down one side and 5 down the other side as a visual. And that is the metaphor that I use, because the laces are not tying the shoe, okay? That we tie the laces. What the laces are doing is integrating the left side with the right side so the shoe can stay on our foot, protect our foot, and do what it was supposed to do, right? So this is the metaphor that if we play the integrity game, we're going to be more resilient. We're going to be able to withstand pressure tests. We're going to have more intention. We're going to have more, you know what I mean? More integrity.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the trick question is, it's not, do you have some or not? It's, we all have some and we all need more. And I'm trying to introduce something that's I haven't seen it done. I'm trying to introduce an actionable 10-point accountability framework or team building framework or adult learning management framework. It's flexible in that regard, but it's as simple as just answering these 10 question sets and then being held to account to taking action on your answers. Very simple.
So, all right, let me just take a quick pause here and add something, and then I want to hear more about some of these questions in the 10-step process here. So I get the this integration, the metaphor. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I agree with you on this. Then we get to this whole idea about how do we change behavior, and what does that look like? And
oh boy,
you've got this embedded in here, man. You've already got it figured out. But in some ways, I just wanted to, like, I've always thought, if you were to talk about it in almost like really basic framework, really basic, there's a lot to this. But if it's just simple, there's 3 things. I like sort of tell people, we're in the business of changing behavior. You and I are.
Yes.
You know, marketers are, keynote speakers are, business people are. We're changing behavior either by our service, by our product, provide this service, provide this product, whatever we do. In some ways, we are all, in terms of business, in the business of changing behavior, right? Whether we intentionally do it or not, we are doing that. So then that's
another way of saying what is sales? It's changing behavior.
Changing behavior, right?
Yeah.
You know, whether it's called influencing, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
And when it comes to like, how do you do this? And so this is where my mind goes. Like, we are not at a loss of information. You know, it's now we're in the economy of what information is valuable. Where is there meaning in the information? You know, which pieces of the billions and trillions and gigabytes of information is necessary for me at this particular time. So it's not the volume of information. If you look at the number of books I have in my office here about leadership, it's like it would choke a pig. You know, we have more books on leadership than we do leaders in some ways, right? Information is not the problem. So the problem is how do we take this information and then turn it into a new behavior is kind of like where my mind sometimes. And so my thought is, one, we need to have a sort of a perception change. There has to be an aha moment. There has to be a paradigm shift. We have to have the right mindset to create the foundation or the fertile ground for the new behavior. Without that, nothing happens. Because you can say, I know I should
the path.
Exactly. I have
Pave
to,
the runway.
do this, but I haven't got the right mindset. So the mindset always leads the show. I mean, like, perception follows behavior, right? So we always have to take a look at that. And the second thing,
behavior follows belief.
Every
behavior is preceded by a belief.
No question there. And again, that's why I'm trying to make this really simple, right?
Yeah.
So the next thing I would say is, well, once you figured out that, then what's the actual behavior? And that takes practice. And we have all sorts of reasons why we don't do that because we're not in the habit of that behavior. But eventually, if we come out the other side,
you ready?
It becomes an unconscious behavior where we don't take will it.
Yeah, can I take a stab at it?
There you go.
Illuminate so many beliefs that our clients have no choice but to see better options.
So say more.
You know, like all belief, how do we change behavior? You got to change the belief. So how do we change the belief? How do we change the belief? We have to recognize the one that they're focused on and illuminate so many other options that they could be like, what was I looking at that one for? This one looks so much better. And then help them on the way. That's just one stab at it.
I would agree with you on that. I mean, again, I'm going really macro, right? Got to change belief.
So another way is ask great questions. Like the better questions I ask, the more I will illuminate other beliefs. Right? I'll give you an example. I'll ask a question like, are you as sure about what you just said as you are that the sun will rise tomorrow? Like if your certainty that the sun's coming up tomorrow is a 10, what would, out of scale of 1 to 10, what's your certainty about what you just said? Like how true is that? And they go, well, I mean, an 8. Okay. So I got 2 points worth of possibility to illuminate something that might be as true or more true than that 8 out of 10 story you just told.
Got it. Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about these questions and this 10-step process of yours.
Yeah.
What are some of your best ones, your juiciest ones?
Well, I mean, at the top, it starts with purpose, right? And I didn't make this up. Like Simon Sinek is popular for popular rappers and start with why. But I mean, we've been asking start with why since the beginning of time. Like, step number 1 in 8 steps to public speaking in the speech 103 classes. What's the purpose of the speech? Entertain, inform, or persuade. So start with why has been around a long time. Just Simon Sinek did a great job. Like, yeah, hats off, right? I want to do for integrity what he did with start with why. Because, been around a while, but, whoever, anyway, very hats off. But the idea is, if you don't know purpose, if you don't first of all, categorically, one way to look at this is what's the meaning of life? What's the purpose of life? Why does life exist? If you don't have an answer to that, then there may be some fundamental, squishiness in the vertebrae of your existence. If you don't appreciate life, have any sort of meaning for life. So where could it come from? It could be politicians, theologists, business leaders, media, wherever you get your meaning for what does life mean. If you don't have an answer to that, how will you value it, respect it, optimize it, invest in it? If you don't have some answer to the question, I don't care if your answer changes tomorrow from what it is today, but I'm worried about every day without an answer. But more specifically for playing the integrity game is what's the meaning of your life, right? If somebody came along and asked me, Dean, Jeff, what's the meaning of your life? What's your purpose right now? I'd say to encourage the world to increase the world's integrity. That's my life purpose. But you asked me 2 years ago or 3 years ago to help my parents reach mortality and grace, as they're declining. That was my purpose at that time. That was the number one focus, and everything else fell second to that. So, purpose and meaning can shift, but if you don't know at any given time what it is, now your decision-making is diluted. You don't know how, it's harder to make decisions.
100% agree.
And now you're waiting for other people to tell you what's important because you haven't decided. So now you're getting like a hose, you turn it on at the wall and now it's spraying water everywhere, but nothing's growing because there's no, focusing on what needs the water, etc. So, what's the purpose of the meeting? What's the purpose of this podcast? What's the purpose of my business? What's the purpose of the book? What's the purpose of the keynote? What's the purpose of the marriage? What's the purpose of being a parent? What's the purpose of attending this or attending that? So if we don't have an answer to that question in any realm for anything that's worth our behavior, right now, our behavior could have less integrity than it would have if we're clear on purpose, right? Mm-hmm. So now that's one set of questions. What's the meaning of life? What's the meaning of your life? Or what's purpose? What's the purpose of whatever it is? So that's what I love about the integrity game is I could run any noun through it, any noun through the model. Yes. You can run a person, a meeting, an event, a team, a culture, a project, a product. What's the meaning of this product? What's the meaning of this service? Why are you offering this service? What's the purpose of offering this service? And to make money. Well, is that it? What else? But even if that's the only answer, every other answer that you need is tied to that. It gives it the foundation that you were talking about. So that's one purpose. And the second question when I introduced the 10 points, the second point that I introduce is gift. And that's just to be succinct. But what I'm really getting at is again, to show you the flexibility of the model, if I'm doing team building or if I'm doing youth groups or if I'm doing in the educational or a theological environment versus a corporate environment or a nonprofit environment, I could start with questions like, what are your God-given gifts? What are your man-made? Or what are the gifts that other human beings have given to you? What are your self-generated gifts? And are you integrating those? If I've as God-given communication skills and timing and humor and empathy to read people, I integrated that with a master's degree, which was self-generated. So now my self-generated gifts, what I'm doing for myself is integrated with God-given or man-made, right? And then another way of looking at gifts, if I'm going into the boardroom, you want to take intuition out of the closet and into the boardroom. I love that. I want to do that with integrity. Take it out of the mission statement and into actual practice, right?
Yeah, there you go.
But let me give you an example, right? Gifts are what in the boardroom? Competitive advantages, differentiation. What do I do better than everybody else that also does it? And what do I do that nobody else does? If I'm not clear on those answers, how am I going to sell my product or service in the marketplace? Right. How am I going to get employees to believe in what they're selling if we don't know what our differentiation is and we can't wave our flag on our purpose and our differentiation? Moreover, is our gifts, is there integration between gifts and purpose? If I'm a gifted storyteller, my purpose shouldn't be to inject lab rats with a serum to get a drug to market. That wouldn't be an integrity, right? To be a
Right.
research scientist in a lab with goggles and a syringe with these storytelling gifts or these public speaking gifts. You follow? It wouldn't
Yeah.
make sense. So before I go on with more question sets in the model, let me restate what I really want you to understand is that the integrity game is easy to understand. It's easy to understand what these question sets are. What's hard is to answer them. And to answer them and then share those answers with anybody else to be held to account, to behave on the answers, right?
Yes.
And I can keep going. There's questions of potential, goals, strategies, commitments, actions taken, learning paths, accomplishments, and service, to be very brief about the other points on the model.
Let me ask you something, because I'm just back and forth with you on this. So I have this perspective, and I wonder if you, because I don't know what the other 8 are, so I'm just taking a stab at this. That there's a part of purpose that's a self-generated type of direction that could be for a team and organization. I get that. I'm also curious about how does that align with those in which we serve? So what is their purpose? So like, we take a look at customers, we take a look at the people in an organization that we are there to serve, whether it's this customer group, that customer group, whatever. The reason for being in this company is to satisfy a purpose or a desire that these people that we serve have.
Right.
And that by understanding what that is, we can align our own purpose to that sort of higher purpose of others, the needs and desires of other people.
Yeah.
Does your 10 steps kind of align that set of questions to the other, the ones that we are in service to provide?
Yeah, well, it can, is what I'm going to say. Each of the 10 points on the model they're not on the 10 points aren't on the football field. It's like, imagine like 10 Goodyear blimps looking down at 10 stadiums. And each of those 10 stadiums have tens of thousands of people inside of them. You follow? So if I'm in the Goodyear blimp that says service, right? I'm looking down and providing aerial coverage on a stadium full of ways to serve, a stadium full of people to serve, a stadium full of reasons and missions to be served, from the food and beverage to the advertisers, to the coaches, to the players, to the cheerleaders, to the fans, to the parents of the players. And there's like a whole world of people, like the people that get trotted out at halftime, who the concession stands are raising money for, to the Little League day, where, the section of seats that were preserved for Little League, because they're going to, the Pop Warner football team is, all the kids get to go that day. So there's everybody on the planet knows somebody more fortunate and less fortunate. Everybody. So the idea is, whatever the context is that's playing the integrity game, if I'm delivering a keynote to middle school children, or if I'm delivering a keynote to 150 auto detailing distributors of, like a car detailing product, or whether I'm delivering it to my students in San Diego State, my point is, having the point on the model raises the question, who wins when I win? When I am playing my integrity game, who else benefits? When I fill my cup up and secure my mask first, where does that spill over to? So in other words, for me, I'll just give you an example. I love youth sport. I have a softness in my heart for underprivileged athletes that don't get to play for some reason or another, like a birth defect or an injury or what have you. And my son's a baseball player and he's healthy as can be. And I feel so grateful for that. I want to do anything I can to raise money for youth sports and underprivileged. You know what I'm saying? So now purpose is, I want to play the integrity game so well that I get to contribute to youth sports. So now there's an integration between my purpose and who I'm serving. So remember, purpose was the first point in the model. Service was the last point that I introduced, but you got to introduce them in a linear fashion. But if it was a bracelet and you connected them, they'd all touch, they'd all integrate with the shoelaces. So the most valuable part of the baseball, most expensive part of the baseball is the leather, but the most valuable part of the baseball are the seams
that connect them all together. Yeah.
Same thing with the laces on a shoe.
So Jeff, as I'm listening to this, say there's somebody driving to work or home or what have you.
Yeah.
Leave us with a question, or leave us with an action. Leave us with something to ponder that we can, think about over the next few weeks or days or what have you. What would you like us to be thinking about as a result of the things that you just shared?
I want to make it easier or easy and fun to look within on the topic of integrity. So the question would be, when you speak of integrity, when you use the word integrity in your day-to-day life, are you looking within when you use that word, or are you judging others? That's one. Are you looking within? Are you holding yourself accountable to your own level of integrity? And then the very closely to that is, if you actually told somebody, I believe I have integrity, or I believe the person, in other words, like, how would you increase someone's integrity? How would you increase your own or another's integrity? If you had to explain to somebody how to increase, is it possible to increase my own or another's integrity? And what are the steps, right?
You would have us think about that.
I would have you think about that, right? Because most people understand what integrity is and what they think integrity is. Most people can recognize when something doesn't seem like it has integrity. People use the word integrity functionally. But what I'm hoping that I'm onto here is that I haven't seen anywhere in the world of behavioral change, personal and professional growth, whether it's the academic classrooms that I've taught in for 20 and a half years now, or the events, the retreats, the stages, the boardrooms, anywhere in between. I haven't seen anybody make a brand promise. Like, I promise to increase your integrity, to help you increase your own, your team, or your culture's integrity. I'm not going to promise you how to weave it into your statement so it sounds good when it's read out loud. I'm going to actually I'm offering a 10-point model that makes it actionable to increase one's team, or one's culture's organizational integrity. So I'm teaching OrgComm right now, organizational communication at San Diego State. And I'm asking them to think about good communication is good. What is organizational integrity? How do we know when an organization has integrity?
Yeah, I think it's a very good point that you make, Jeff.
Yeah.
That the words on a page, gosh, I can't tell you how many times, and you all out there have heard this and seen this yourself. It doesn't mean much unless we actually follow it. And what you're talking about is how to make these words real. And I think that the two questions that you ask us to think about, I mean, how are you looking? Are you looking
within? Are you looking within when you use the word?
When you think about the word integrity, and to how would you increase your own integrity?
How would you?
I think
step one, step two, step three. I want to know.
Yeah, that's a great way of letting us sort of simmer on that. So, how do people follow you, my friend? How do we get in touch with you?
Yeah, awesome. Well, you and I, we're connected. So if they know you, they should be able to find me. LinkedIn, I'm easy to find. Jeff Klubeck. I do a lot of stuff on Facebook. The Integrity Game on Amazon. It's shameless plug, right? It's good. That's fine. It's thank you. Okay, it's just like $13 or something right now on Amazon. The Integrity Game, easy to find. The Integrity Game, Jeff Klubeck, and I do some stuff on LinkedIn. Like every week, I came out with another book that's a tips book. I read 52 tips, so I read one per week on LinkedIn. That's totally free. People can hang out and chime in, and you come on board and ask questions. It's kind of like online office hours, but I have a tip that I read to get the conversation started from my 52 tips book. And I still, I'm growing and things are cool, but I still answer my own email and I'm easy to find. So if you connect with me on social, it'll be me. One of these days I'll have somebody handling all of that. Right? No. I'm very down to earth, easy to find. You can, come on campus to San Diego State Tuesdays, Thursdays. I'm there teaching classes the rest of the semester. So, but LinkedIn is probably the easiest thing to, check me out on LinkedIn, connect with me there, and that'll lead to whatever else. We'll find out what you're all about.
Jeff, it's been a pleasure. I really like the work you're doing.
Dean, thank you so much. I'm having a blast, and I'm really grateful for the platform and the opportunity to talk about this. It's, somebody asked me what my purpose is. It's really to increase the world's integrity, through this model, and we'll see where this thing goes.
Thank you for listening to The Business of Intuition. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to learn more about Dean or Mission Facilitators Leadership, go to mfileadership.com. That's mfileadership.com.